The intrigues of the ODM night meeting, moments after James Orengo met Uhuru Kenyatta's circle, is emerging as preconditions for Raila to have talks with William Ruto, rather than what has been touted as broad-based government is emerging. And the behind the scene of how Raila made a U-turn. And that is why when the president spoke yesterday announcing the 11-member cabinet team, the ODM access was missing and no one was actually appearing in that list. The pro-government bloggers that had really decamped from Raila Odinga's side are in regret, and they're regretting any sort of talks between Raila and Ruto. Things are turning. And I think it is very true that Raila Odinga has been getting away with this sort of handshakes. But this time round, the handshake is not shaking anymore. And the ODM team is telling Raila, enough is enough. In this podcast, I want us to look at some 5 conditions, not 5, 6 conditions that James Orengo when James confronted Raila Odinga after the Central Management Committee made a resolution on joining Ruto's government. The meeting is reported to have been convened by ODM Parliamentary Caucus and a host of governors and senators, and other party officials who are not even elected. Sorry. Sifuna read the resolution of the management committee, but the mood, Raila had to read the mood, because of the mood in the building was, we are not boarding Kenya Kwanza train to Kenya Kwanza's government. And Raila Odinga found himself in a big fix. But everything was choreographed well, because after Sifuna spoke, he then gave the chance to Orengo, my governor, the Siaya governor, to explain his reservations, or rather his opinion on this matter. And Raila Odinga, when Orengo emerged, he was actually bold enough to give Raila Odinga the bombshell. But just to add more salt in this, even a senior member of Raila's family who was present in the meeting emerged and said Odinga family is against it. So let's look at what Orengo, the preconditions that Orengo gave to Raila Odinga in respect to any sort of government, that is, any sort of talks between Raila Odinga and James Orengo. But I would want you to listen to this soundbite of Raila speaking in Kakamega, and the way he was trying to defend his first appearance with President Ruto. That was somewhere in KCC. So from this video, you will agree with me that even this decision of working with William Ruto and this, Raila has been at crossroads, not being able to compose and even to compose himself and even defend that decision.
Mimi nilikuwa nimejua yale ambayo yalifanyika mwaka jana itarudi tena. Hii mambo ya Gen Z si tofauti na yale ilikuwa mwaka jana. Ile hasira ya mwaka jana ndio imerudi sasa. Na James amenitumia mimi ujumbe, kaniambia baba, kaa nyumbani. Umfanya kutosha. Wakia sisi tumalize hii kazi. Sio nitumia mimi ujumbe namna hiyo. Si mimi nimetulia. Mimi sijafanya chochote. Kini juzi wakanitumia mimi ujumbe ya kwamba ile ripoti ya IBC ambayo imepitishwa na bunge itarekewa sahihi na Bwana Ruto, na wanataka mimi kama co-principal niwe pale. Wakasema itakuwa Ikulu. Wakasema mimi siendi Ikulu. iwe mahali ingine. Wakasema kwa OP, nikasema hapana. Mwishowe wakasema KICC, nikasema hapo sawa, nitakuja. Nikampigia Kalonzo simu, nikamwambia Kalonzo, wanataka mimi niende, lakini wewe ndio uliongoza timu yetu, wewe na Wandae muende na mimi nikae kando. Kalonzo akasema mpaka wewe ukuje. Mimi nikae kando. Sasa ilikuwa tuanze iwe saa 3, nikamwambia mimi sijajitayarisha, wacha nijitayarishe, tuweke saa 4. Tukaenda tukakutana na Kalonzo na hao wengine wote, tukaongea pale. Ndio sasa tukaongea tukasema pale Kenya iko hapa, tuko mahali mbaya, mama hawezi kuendelea namna hii. Hatuwezi kuongea mambo yoyote mpaka watu Kenya wakubaliane. Nataka watu waelewe pale hii mambo ya dialogue ilitoka wapi. Tukaongea tukasema tuweke kongamano ya watu, si dialogue na bwana Ruto. Ili kwa ni people's dialogue. Ati wa Kenya waende, sisi tukae pale ili tuongee kama wa Kenya. Sio ati kwenda kuongea na bwana Ruto na UDA. Hii haikuwa maneno tulikuwa na maneno. Hata Ruto mwenyewe alikuwa hataki mambo ya dialogue. Hataki mambo ya dialogue. Sasa haya maneno watu hawakuelewa vizuri. Manake pale tuko hapa kuna hasira mingi zaidi. Mwaka jana waliua vijana 75 na zaidi. Mwaka huu sasa wameua watu hajulikani ngapi, manake sasa bado hata leo hii umefukua maiti kule Kware kule Mkuru kwa Njenga. Watu ambao wanawawa kama wanyama. Tulisema huyu bwana Kome atoke. Sasa sisi mwaka jana tulipeleka yeye Hague kwa ICC. Mambo bado yuko kule kwa Hague. Akaniambia mimi yeye haogopi Hague. Nikamwambia wakati yako itafika. Kilio cha kifo halisikii dawa.
And the best person that could then tell him off was actually James Orengo. The first thing that Orengo told Raila, that youths should be allowed to protest, continue protesting. And this is a move discrediting the anarchy narrative being peddled by the government side. Orengo warning Raila Odinga that even multi-party democracy was achieved through the public goodwill when Kenyans came out of their numbers and protest, and they overwhelmed Moi. And Orengo hinting that if the opposition will legitimize the anti-protest move, then they're shooting themselves in the foot. Why? The government has the numbers in the National Assembly and they've been controlling everything. There is no guarantee that this is going to be, that the Gen Z is the last protest that's going to happen. There are other labor movements that are planning to protest against the administration. There are other, apart from even labor movements, there are other policies and other laws that even the government will try to do after getting that blanket support from opposition, and the opposition will have no any other weapon apart from exercising the direct power of the people in Article 37. So Orengo hinted this because one of the things that had emerged here is the fact that government had actually outlawed protest, and in fact there was a move to go to parliament and pass some legislation on protests, something that was not welcomed well. And while talking about this, I just wonder sometimes, I am one person that do not buy. I had Raila asking So if Ruto goes, then what next? Rigathi takes over. Now, if Rigathi takes over, Rigathi will implement the bad policies that were there. They will still be there. Or William Ruto will still give up and give it to the generals. And then the generals will actually brutalize the population. I dare ask this, and that is why I don't appreciate that kind of narrative. And I'm shocked that even the ODM, some ODM circles are even entertaining that narrative. In 2023, when they were protesting Ruto must go, what was their plan? Did they know all this? When Raila led the Ruto must go protest last year, did he know about anything called anarchy? Did he know about if Ruto goes, Rigathi takes over? So sometimes the level of political blackmail has to be called out. This cannot be entertained in the altar of political patronage. Sometimes facts have to remain facts, however stubborn they are. Now, the second precondition that Orengo tabled was the police brutality experienced and the use of live bullets must be addressed in adherence to the court order that had been issued. The police had been using live bullets and the tear gas canisters against a court order that was issued. And that is even in concurrence with the international protest management laws. So Orengo also said that before we think even about talking to William Ruto, guys, come on, let's look at that police brutality. And remember, it is not just about 2024. This is something that started even last year. This is something that was experienced even last year in 2023. So we must cure it before we even think about who to become a CS where, how many CSs to be given, and what. Is it just about being given a CS? Or, and I've always said, even after getting 3 CSs or 4, then what happens to parastatal heads? What happens to parliamentary leadership? What happens to, what happens to ambassadors? There's so many other. So if you're given a smoke screen of some 3 ministries or 4 ministries, then you want to call that inclusivity, then I think maybe we are not just being truthful with ourselves. The other third condition was unconditional withdrawal of charges leveled against protesters, and also release all arrested and abducted protesters unconditionally. Oh my goodness. These are some of the mistakes that the Raila team did. Raila has been doing this, and I'm glad now Governor Orengo is saying, this is what has to be spoken. Even after the 2013 handshake, it took Raila 4 months to go back and start explaining what the sort of handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta was. Because there were a lot of damages that have been caused, the lives had been lost, and now even this one, after lives have been lost by the Gen Z, over the Gen Z protest, then it's coming over to sanitize. And that's where Orengo is putting a stop and saying, look here, let's not talk about the cabinet slots. Let's look at these unconditional, these fellows that are still in the hospitals that were brutalized by the public. The fourth other demand is justice for families of all victims of police brutality killed last year and those year, with those hospital bills waived and be released from those hospitals before any talk. Orengo also called on police who killed protesters who were seen on camera killing protesters and shooting carelessly be arrested and prosecuted, saying that resignation of the IG Kome is not enough, since even Kindiki should be prosecuted for some of the ills that really happened in the country. And the sixth one is removal of backdoor taxes introduced after finance bill. And this in context, speaking about the road maintenance levy. I think I got a video of Orengo speaking some time back, warning about it, and that was when he was a senator. Let's listen to that.
So I'm praying that Kenyans will listen to the voices of mothers like Mana Kevin, to see that justice is done. Justice is done. And I want to say, those who are in a rush to join Ruto, that Ruto is a passing cloud. I am saying that without a fear of contradiction. Because Ruto now has no money. Because he's been borrowing. And the Kenyans have told him, you cannot borrow. Ruto has said no taxation. But he said he is continuing to taxation. And he refused taxation through the finance bill. So he cannot tax Kenyans. Ruto has lost the confidence of the international community. So, where is Ruto going to take us? Ruto is taking us into a sinking ship. And I'm urging everybody that joining Ruto is a disaster, is an abomination. It cannot work. And nobody is going to tell us. When you are saying Ruto must go, when we say Ruto must go with all these people. And the entire government must go. Nobody is going to remain there.
Now, Orengo is one of the most consistent politicians when it comes to social justice. He's been consistent on matters of social justice. And the element that is missing in this political dispensation between Ruto and Raila is social justice. That was missing even between the handshake of Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, even now, there is this secret one being called between Raila and Ruto. The social justice part is been missing. And that's why Orengo is holding on it, saying we cannot make the same, and we cannot repeat the same mistake. By the way, the turnout in Nyanza in 2022 was not that good. Yes, Raila's voting base did not come out good. And it's shrinking. And it's going down because they keep on making the same mistake. And I'm glad Orengo is pointing it out. The meeting ended in a bad note because Ruth Odinga, who is the Kisumu women rep and sister to Raila Odinga, confronted Junet, Joho, and Auparanya, who are actually pro-government and supporting the move for cabinet slots. Probably they are angling for those positions, for their names to be forwarded for those positions, and telling Raila that the Lanja Odinga family, which is led by Oduor Odinga, who was absent from the meeting, is against any sort of secret handshake with Ruto, since it will erode the gains of the struggle that has been associated with the Odinga family. Reports emerge on Orengo. Orengo had allegedly met Uhuru Kenyatta circles ahead of the crucial meeting with Raila. And even when Ruto named his cabinet, the 11-batch member cabinet, the slots were allegedly remaining on Raila camp because there was no sort of agreement, probably looking into the fact that even Kalonzo Musyoka, Axis, and Karua and the rest of Azimio were not in agreement with the Raila Odinga Ruto deal. Why Raila is making this U-turn, and I think the Star is even saying that Raila is making that U-turn after some emerging issues on that side. There are 4 reasons why Raila is making that U-turn. The ODM youth wing is cleverly distancing itself from the move, and that will make it more divisive. Okongo Mogeni, Nyamira Senator, warned Raila Odinga, just avoid Ruto. Onyonka, Kisumu Kisii Senator, said, forgive, just leave this discussion about Ruto. There is nothing tangible coming from it. Babu Owino have also emerged. And even Sifuna is secretly mooting an opposition against it, but because he's the Secretary General of the party, it's not very easy to go against the party position. But the ODM youth wing is dissatisfied with it, since it's nothing very nothing positive to be taken from it. The other second reason why Raila would make a U-turn is Kalonzo Musyoka headline stand, sticking with the Gen Z will actually change the political matrix. In fact, I can tell you, I saw that stupid and reckless activity where some men went and stormed a press briefing that was to be held by Kalonzo. I was so annoyed by that thing. That was so stupid, by the way. Some things are so backward, and that's not something to even to, I don't even want to analyze it. I was really annoyed by that. So, you know, Kalonzo and the team have said we don't want that aspect, but they're sticking with the Gen Z. So I think even Raila constituency is saying, look here, if Kalonzo carries along the Gen Z, the political matrix is going to change. Now, the winning ODM base will not carry along that development. I think it's Raila is making a very big assumption that the ODM base will carry along. It's not guaranteed. And I said in my previous video here, it's not guaranteed that the ODM wing will carry along that development of supporting William Ruto. And I think Raila also understands that Ruto regime lacks feel-good effect, the relief on voters, without signs of tax relaxation. I'm not seeing Ruto relaxing any tax, as many would expect. But in fact, to the best of my knowledge, the things will even emerge more worse if Raila and the team accepts to legitimize the Ruto power. Thank you.